We had gotten to the point where we were talking about having in this spinal cord, all right? Because don't forget, that's the point we're at right now. We're at the spinal cord. And when I showed you the anatomy, it looks like there are these tracks that are on the spinal cord. And we're going to find that we have ascending and descending tracks. We left off, I think, at the gracile fasciculus because of the fact that it's for that proprioception, your place in space. Now, the textbook and the notes are going to be a little more informative about the different types of ascending tracks, okay? But like I said, I am not asking you to remember those, okay? Now, the next part that we have are the descending tracks. The descending tracks, if information had to move up the tracks. Now remember, what type of information is this? If we had to have information travel, ascending tracks, is it sensory or motor information? Sensory, okay? So now that tells us if we have a descending tract, what type of information is going to be traveling? Our motor, okay? So the descending tracks, they're carrying the motor signals down the brain stem. Whoa, wait a minute. Where's that? Think of up here. Okay, and then we have to exit the skull to get to the spinal cord. Is that correct? Okay. So now I have to carry motor information down. Do you happen to remember the neurons that the sensory traveled? How many it traveled? 3. Look at this one. Well, now, if it's the response, the motor, it's now 2. We're going to have what's termed an upper motor neuron. Except for a reflex, which can basically go into, get integrated, and the response come back out at the level of the spinal cord where it enters. Other movements that we're going to make is going to involve a higher area of our brain. So, when we say that this upper motor neuron originates in the cerebral cortex, we haven't gotten to this. This is pretty much what everybody thinks about when they say brain, right? Don't forget we got that part too. Okay? This area that we think of as the brain, this one is our cerebrum. Okay? If we look at this, and we talked about it last week, what types of lobes are here? We got frontal, got occipital, parietal, temporal, okay? When sensory information has to go in, something has to make sense of it, okay? So now, if that sensory information came in, went up the ascending tract, there's an area in the cerebrum that has to deal with it and has to determine what is going to be the response. So once we have that, and we term it the cerebral cortex. When you look at the cerebrum, think of like this outer region, this outer area, for a certain amount of thickness as the cortex. All right? But now what we're going to find, we're going to have two very prominent gyri, okay, that are going to be responsible for a lot of this. We haven't gotten to that part yet, but I don't want you to forget it. Okay? So, the upper motor neuron, cerebral cortex, or brainstem. Wait a minute. Hitting that term again. Okay? The brainstem. Where am I at? When we talk about the brainstem, I flipped my brain over right now. Show it to me again.
What I would think for.
Yes.
Okay.
What you're thinking of is this area right here. What's located there?
Top of the.
Okay, when you say Selaturska, you're thinking about the area that's holding our little pituitary gland. We got the medulla, we got the pons. Remember those areas? Midbrain. Okay? Wait a minute. What has that got to do with any of this sensory information that's going in? Gotta speak. Man, hearing is going bad. I'm getting too old. Okay, gotta holler at me.
I would say like transform, so it's in a type of way that the brain will understand it.
That's going to be more in some higher order, but a little bit on that level. Here's the cool thing about this area of the brain. This is our primitive region of the brain. When we talk about the brainstem, that is our primitive region of the brain. What do I mean by primitive?
First, lower functions, just survival.
Our survival. Holy cow, what does that mean? Because that involves, here's a term from part 1 that hopefully everybody remembers. Homeostasis. Homeostasis is at 35%. Y'all are not going to have a clue what movie that's from. What is homeostasis?
Keep the body balanced in
Okay, let's everybody kind of be like, oh. Okay, Destiny, what?
Regulation of balancing.
Regulation of balancing.
basically the same thing. Like inside of the body, keeping everything stable.
The maintenance of our internal environment. What is that?
It's really like blood pressure.
Blood pressure, temperature,
Hormones.
not a little bit. It's a little complicated. Maintaining chemical balances in our blood, that sort of thing. Thirst, hunger, sexual reproduction, all of these that are for our survival. So, if we have sensory information go in, we're going to have it get integrated, and the motor neuron, the part that's going to begin the response, is going to originate in either the cortex or the brainstem, and it's going to terminate at the lower motor neuron. the lower motor neuron. It can be in the brainstem or the spinal cord. So that tells me that if I had sensory information go in, go up, get registered, get a response, and begin to come back down, that upper motor neuron has to terminate either in the brainstem or somewhere in my spinal cord. Now remember, this chapter is about the spinal cord and our spinal nerves. The nerves that are going to exit through these vertebrae surrounding the cord. Is everybody with me? So now I've had sensory information go in, I've had it get integrated, and now I've got a response coming down. If the response terminates here or somewhere in my spinal cord, does that give me everything that might be that response? Or does the response still need to be carried out? It's still going to need to be carried out. So that tells me it's going to involve my spinal nerves. Okay, now, let me think about this for a second. Those spinal nerves that exit, they're going to go out of this spinal cord, out between those vertebrae, and they're going to come around to everything. Don't forget that even though everything, it's still going to have to come out and go around to our viscera, the organs.
Can you explain a pinched nerve?
A pinched nerve means that somewhere on that spinal, for the most part, nerve, the bones have something has caused some swelling or some compression, and it's pinching on that nerve that's exiting. And because these nerves go around to something, okay, like this right here, look at these huge nerves. They're going to come out and they're going to innervate something. So if they're pinched, whatever they innervate hurts. So if you think about down here, if something is pinched, because it's going to innervate something, if it's pinched, something is going to hurt. People might say, oh, my sciatica's up and acting up today. Oh, just don't know if I can handle it. All right, and so they're holding a particular part of their body, all right? And that's because that's the area where it's pinched, compressed in some way. It could be a herniated disc. It could be the bones. There's a lot of things that it could be.